Good morning, class. My name is Brandon, and I have ADHD. Today we're going to be talking about ADHD, and this is a sensitive subject for me, so please bear with me. As I stated before, I have ADHD, so I have all the credibility in the world to talk about this. I feel like this is a relevant topic to talk about because I feel like knowing more about ADHD can better us as human beings. Today I'm going to be talking about my life with ADHD, share a story, ask a few questions about ADHD and how it can help everybody in the long run. To do this, I'm going to be telling a story about my life and kind of what my mom has gone through, and then kind of share a little bit about my cousin Dylan. ADHD has always affected my life. ADHD has been with me since I was 4 years old when I was diagnosed by my doctor. Most people get diagnosed around 5, 6 years old. I was diagnosed a little bit earlier, which tells you it was pretty crazy. One of the stories that always comes to my head is when my mom was talking with some of her friends. They were just like, "Oh, my kids are bouncing on the wall," and she just chuckled, and they asked why, and she's like, "Because my kids literally are bouncing, or my kid is literally bouncing off the wall." And how I would get to class, that I would go boom, boom, and I would just hit every single wall, and it's just because of that impulsivity that I have. The reason why I am talking about ADHD is because it's something that's near and dear to my heart and near and dear to a lot of family members. And although there's many conflicts with ADHD, such as feeling like a failure, depression, anxiety, that doesn't define us as those with ADHD. And the best thing about ADHD is that we almost feel like superheroes once we understand what ADHD are. And to some people, like my mom or my Aunt Emily, their kids with ADHD are superheroes. This story and a little bit of knowledge on my life helps me transition to the question that I'm asking. And that question is, with a little bit more knowledge on ADHD, what can we do with our lives? The reason why I'm asking this is because I think it's important to know about ADHD and what we can do with our lives and better help those with ADHD. The implications of knowing the answer to this question is, like I said, just helping us as human beings. To do this, we're going to be talking about 3 sources that I have right now. The first source talks about what 4 regions of the brain is most affected by ADHD, which are the frontal cortex, the limbic system, the reticular activating system, and the basal ganglia. All these talk about the lack of impulsivity, or the lack of such system creates impulsivity, hyperactivity, and the two most important ones are the limbic system and the frontal cortex, which controls our high level function and regulates our attention and emotion. If you look right here, the green brain is a normal brain function, and then the ADHD brain right here shows the red, which is the frontal cortex, which is most affected by ADHD. The answer to my question can also be talked about in my next few sources. These next sources talk about some facts with ADHD. Kids with ADHD have a higher chance of anxiety disorder, depression, sleeping disorder, and on average will die sooner than the average person. ADHD is no one's fault. We were born with it. It's a disorder. A lot of people believe that ADHD is taught or it's due to bad parenting. In reality, we were born with it. And the parents who have kids with ADHD might even be better parents than kids without it, just because of the things that they have to do. The next one is ADHD is diagnosed in a complex manner. Just because you have a lack of attention or fidget doesn't mean you have ADD and ADHD, and actually harms us when people jokingly say they have ADHD or they feel like they can't pay attention so they must have ADD. When we truly go through those things, and if we say stuff like that, people will just take it as a joke and not an actual real thing. The next few facts that I want to talk about is we easily forget things like daily tasks. It happens all the time. Treatment doesn't cure us. There is no cure to ADHD. Treatment just helps us function better with ADHD. One of the most well-known treatments for ADHD is medication. Often, like my cousin Dylan, we become so hyper-focused on one thing, we stop caring about everything else. And that doesn't mean we don't care, it just means we're pushing it aside because we are so hyper-focused on that one thing. With this story and with these sources that I've talked about today, it'll help us answer that question, which the answer to the question is very, very simple. With more knowledge on ADHD, you'll be able to better understand ADHD, how it works, what we go through, what we have to deal with, and you too will be able to help us better understand ourselves, and you'll help yourself better understanding ADHD. Some of the biggest people who understand ADHD is my Aunt Emily and my mom, who have 2 kids with high ADHD levels, and each and every day they are considered superheroes to me because of what they're able to do. In conclusion, I just want to talk about the effects of knowing ADHD. Being able to know about ADHD will better help us, as I stated before. The long-term effects is with more and more people knowing about ADHD, the better it'll become, and we can get rid of that social stigma that not everybody has ADHD who says, oh, I can't pay attention. Thank you so much for listening to my speech today, and I hope you too can take this knowledge on ADHD and better and apply it into your lives. And I can't wait to hear about your speeches, guys. Thank you.